On Easter Monday, April 21st, 2025, the world awoke to the news that Pope Francis, the 266th pontiff of the Roman Catholic Church, had passed away. His death marked the end of a profoundly influential era, not only for the Catholic faithful, but for global humanitarian and interfaith efforts. Pope Francis had been a beacon of humility, empathy, and social consciousness in a world increasingly fractured by inequality, division, and apathy. His papacy, beginning in 2013, was rooted in the ideals of compassion for the marginalized, ecological stewardship, and a relentless push for dialogue over dogma. The news of his passing sent ripples of grief and reflection through the corridors of power and into the hearts of the ordinary and the devout alike. Barack and Michelle Obama, a tribute of reverence. Just hours after the somber announcement from the Vatican, former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama released a joint statement. Their words were not only a message of condolence, but also a meditation on the late Pope's legacy. Pope Francis was the rare leader who made us want to be better people, they wrote. In his humility and his gestures at once simple and profound, embracing the sick, ministering to the homeless, washing the feet of young prisoners, he shook us out of our complacency and reminded us that we are all bound by moral obligations to God and to one another. Their statement continued, expressing how deeply they mourned alongside countless others across the globe. Today, Michelle and I mourn with everyone around the world, Catholic and non-Catholic alike, who drew strength and inspiration from the Pope's example. May we continue to heed his call to never remain on the sidelines of this march of living hope. This message stood as a powerful eulogy, a summation of the Pope's moral authority that transcended religion. It reminded people of his deeds, his values, and most importantly, his human touch. A jarring contrast, Trump's Easter rant. While the world grieved and celebrated the life of a man who devoted himself to peace, dignity, and inclusion, another message emerged, one so politically charged and bitter that it stood in stark contrast to the reverence and reflection enveloping the globe. Former President Donald Trump took to his Truth Social platform on Easter Sunday morning to post a tirade dripping with vitriol. "Happy Easter to all," the post began, almost deceptively. But quickly, the message descended into a barrage of attacks against political opponents, judges, law enforcement, immigrants, and President Joe Biden. Trump accused Biden of unleashing millions of criminals upon the country and described him as the worst and most incompetent president in American history. His message was not only inappropriate for a day typically reserved for renewal, hope, and unity, it also exemplified the deep chasm in contemporary political discourse. Coming just hours before news of the Pope's death, it felt all the more jarring, a sermon of scorn during a season of grace. J.D. Vance in the Vatican, a surreal moment. In a development that felt almost surreal, Trump's vice president, Senator J.D. Vance, visited the Vatican that same day. The meeting between Vance and the ailing Pope Francis was brief and ceremonial, according to Vatican officials. It was intended as a simple Easter greeting, a customary gesture of goodwill. Clips from the encounter showed a courteous exchange, with Vance expressing concern for the Pope's health and offering daily prayers. Pope Francis, with characteristic humility and humor, reportedly responded, "Please don't pray for me, JD." The remark, lighthearted as it seemed, resonated with a deeper subtext, perhaps an acknowledgement of ideological divergence. Many observers were struck by the timing and optics of the meeting. A populist politician known for inflammatory rhetoric, standing before a frail but symbolically towering figure of moral authority. It was a juxtaposition that underlined the contradictions and complexities of global politics and spiritual leadership in our time. Pope Francis, a papacy of purpose. To understand why so many, including Barack and Michelle Obama, spoke with such reverence for Pope Francis, one must revisit the defining features of his papacy. Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the first pope from the Americas, was elected in 2013 following the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI. As the first Jesuit pope, in the first from the global south, he brought a new lens to the Vatican, one shaped by lived experience in Buenos Aires, where he ministered to the poor and downtrodden. Francis quickly broke with tradition. He eschewed the lavish papal apartments, choosing instead to reside in the more modest Domus Sanctae Marthae. He washed the feet of Muslim migrants, embraced the disfigured and disabled, and opened the church's doors to conversations around LGBTQ+ inclusion, interfaith unity, and environmental responsibility. His encyclical Laudato Si became a seminal call to action on climate change, emphasizing the moral duty to protect our common home. The political weaponization of Holy Days Easter is a time traditionally marked by themes of resurrection, hope, and community. For millions around the world, it's a season to put aside politics and embrace common humanity. Yet Trump's 2025 message turned this sacred time into a battleground. His decision to use Easter to lash out at his enemies wasn't just tactless. It signaled a deeper erosion of civic and spiritual norms. In this context, the Obama's message felt like a lifeline, an anchor back to the core values of dignity, empathy, and shared purpose. Their statement didn't merely mourn a religious leader, it mourned the apparent decline of public discourse, the erosion of respect for sacred spaces, and the loss of a voice that constantly called us to be better. Legacy and lessons. As the world continues to process Pope Francis's death, the contrast between the two messages, one of grace and one of grievance, serves as a case study in leadership and moral clarity. Barack and Michelle Obama's response channeled the very essence of the Pope's teachings: humility, inclusion, and the importance of acting on behalf of others. Trump's outburst, by contrast, served as a reminder of the stakes involved in choosing leaders, not just for their policies, but for the example they set. The Pope may have passed, but his moral compass remains. His memory now rests with all who dare to speak softly in loud times, who lead by example, and who, like the Obamas in their message, believe in the power of words to heal rather than harm. Conclusion: a moment of reckoning. Easter 2025 offered the world a moment of reckoning. It was a juxtaposition of mourning and meaning, of sacred remembrance and political theater. On one hand, a globe united in grief and gratitude for a pope who made us better. On the other, a public figure so consumed by resentment that even a holy day became fodder for fury. The stark divergence between these narratives should prompt reflection, not only on the kind of leaders we want, but on the kind of people we aspire to be. In a world where hope can be fragile and dignity easily drowned out by noise, the legacy of Pope Francis and the Obama's tribute to him reminds us that there is still power in grace, still strength in compassion, and still hope in humility.